This winter is kind of getting ridiculous. Like, look at all of this snow piling up back here. We're gonna have to start breaking out the snow shovels, snow plows. I don't even know how I'm gonna get home. It's getting ridiculous.
I got cystic fibrosis. See, I've got cystic fibrosis.
Hey guys, my name's Chelsea. Welcome back to Staying Salty. If you watched my video last week, you know that one of my New Year's resolutions is to make it to the beach at least once a week, even though this is a bay. But it has water and sand and most likely sea creatures, so I'm going to say it counts. I also may slightly want to brag to my East Coast family and friends that in the middle of January, this is what I'm enjoying while they are all shoveling their driveways from snow. But by the time you guys watch this video, I will have turned 24. My birthday is Thursday, so this video goes up on Friday. So, in celebration, I'm going to talk to you guys this week about our topic, which is how we were diagnosed. This topic's a little bit different than what we normally do because I don't really have an opinion or advice or anything about this topic since I was only a few months old, and the story that I know and I'm going to tell you guys is a story that was told to me by my family, and so that's what I'm going to tell you. I already told a little bit of this story in my This Is Me video when we started this channel, but might as well go over it again and tell you guys exactly what happened. So I was born January 12th, 1993 in Wilmington, Delaware. And I was born 2 weeks early, so I was a little tiny, but for the most part, perfectly fine. And of course, everything that my parents had expected. Amazing. But for the most part, I was pretty healthy. But it didn't take much time for me to start displaying symptoms that something just wasn't right. I actually moved to the Virgin Islands when I was 2 months old because before I was born, my parents had started building a house down there, and I was slightly a surprise, at least timing-wise. So when I came along, we were in the middle of building, so we actually moved back down when I was 2 months old. But before we even moved, my mom had already seen symptoms that just weren't right. She had already taken me to my doctor and said, look, there is something wrong with this baby. She's not acting right. And she could just tell something was wrong. And my doctor simply completely dismissed us, said that my mom was an over-worried first-time mother and to go enjoy her baby in the Virgin Islands and forget about it. So with my doctor's advice, we went down to the Virgin Islands and lived our lives. And while we were there, as you would expect, knowing that I have CF now, I just continued to get worse and have more symptoms. And looking back on pictures now, I am astonished how someone didn't tell my parents, hey, there's something wrong with your baby. I had these giant chubby cheeks that looked like I was storing nuts in my cheeks for the winter. And some of the pictures I see now, I'm just so astonished that no one said anything to my parents. But of course, everyone just thought I was such a cute little baby and so chubby. But obviously, my parents knew something was wrong. I just wasn't keeping any food down, projectile vomiting all the time. And at 4 months old, my mom took me to a doctor in the Virgin Islands who was actually a geneticist, Dr. Booty, in case you were wondering. But took me to Dr. Booty, and he was the one who actually said, look, I don't know what's wrong with your daughter, but there's something definitely wrong, and it's genetic, and you need to get her off of this island. So after that, me and my mom flew back to Delaware and went to the hospital and essentially was admitted because I was 4 months old and I still only weighed 8 pounds. I was diagnosed with failure to thrive and a whole bunch of other things that essentially no one really thought of CF because it didn't run anywhere on either of my parents' side. Potentially maybe my mom's uncle had died of it in infancy, but No one had any proof, no one even thought of CF. It actually took 2 weeks for them to finally diagnose me with cystic fibrosis. But after that, once they diagnosed me with CF, started feeding tubes, started treatments, things like that, and especially my main issue was digestion, started me on enzymes and things like that so that I could actually digest my food. I started becoming a completely different baby. I was happy, my demeanor changed, my cheeks went away, and I became the baby that everyone thought I was going to be. It just took a little bit longer. So it actually wasn't until 4 months old that I was actually diagnosed. And once that happened, I had a feeding tube, but kept yanking my feeding tube out. So at, I think, 5 months old, my mother decided to put in a G-tube, which actually stayed in until I was 8 years old for nutritional feedings and things like that to help me gain weight because I was so underweight at the time. So I stayed in the hospital for another 2 weeks and was discharged, and then stayed in Delaware for another few months until everything with my CF was under control. And at 6 months, I finally went back down and was in the Virgin Islands and grew up there for 8 years. So essentially, my diagnosis summary is I was born, my mom could tell something was wrong, the doctor refused to believe her, didn't do any tests, said I was fine, continued to get worse, lived in the Virgin Islands, and eventually became a chipmunk, where Dr. Booty said something was wrong, came back to Delaware, was in the hospital for failure to thrive, got diagnosed with CF, and everything was fine after that. So that's my diagnosis story. Like I said, I don't really have many opinions or anything else to say about it. Next week, I think, is going to be a very interesting topic because it's actually how we understood what CF meant. I think as CFers, our diagnosis is very impactful on our parents, but for us, usually we're very, very young and it's hard for us to understand what it means. And next week, we're going to talk about when we actually realized what CF meant, since our parents realized that when we were diagnosed. So keep an eye out for that. I know I have a very interesting story, and I know everyone else has great stories to tell you. So tune in next week. Now there's sun in my eye. The sun keeps moving and it keeps getting in my eye. But I will talk to you guys next week. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.